session focuses on the judicial and non-judicial ways to have that prior, free, and consent. So to look in depth at these topics on how companies use to undermine the rights of people to prior consultation. So the companies, how they use tricks and traps and all that. So we have two lectures today, two people who will intervene, and hopefully, let's hope we have so many questions for answers and questions and answers. So this session will be as productive as possible. Likewise, as we know, 2 hours is not a lot of time to address everything. But those are the challenges that we face in life. And the idea is just to touch on subjects and to identify voids. There's a flip chart in the room, and you can write the questions and your concerns. We have Adil Mendez, who is an activist, a lawyer, and he will talk to you about his life. And we have Hugo Javina, who's an activist and community leader, or Samaka community in Suriname. And they, with their campaign, try to put end to the destruction of their boats by timber companies. They were able to have a ruling from the Inter-American Court which highlights the obligations of respecting the consent when impacts of the project can have a very serious impact on the cultural and the economic identity of a community. So maybe who wants to go first, Adil or Hugo?
Good afternoon. So this session will deal with free prior informed consent. And as you know, I'm from Suriname. I'm a Samaka. A Samaka is one of the latest African descendant people in Suriname that exist in the forest with our own governance system. So from our existence, free, prior, informed is one of the basic principles among community members. Because if every one of the community has a certain part of the land that they do their farm, they do their economic activities, and if one other community member wants to enter that area or want to make use of valuable timber, then you have to approach the one who used that part to seek for consent. You have to ask, like, I saw this timber, I want to make a boat, or I want need it for housing material. Can I have it? So, because they assume that you are the owner, you are the right holder from that part of the territory. And then, yes, and in most of the cases, you get permission, you get consent to use or either the timber or other resources that there. So for us, is FPIC a basic principle. And we mentioned the Samaka case. That's a landmark ruling date, the 28th of November 2007, when we won this landmark case against the state of Suriname, because the state of Suriname violate this basic principle of FPIC. They granted logging concession, mining concession within our territory without inform us, without our consent. So there's no prior consultation, there's no consent from the community, and that was a violation of our basic human rights, the right to FPIC. So the Inter-American Court find the government, the state of Suriname, guilty for our violation of our rights. And then in the ruling, beside the fact that the state was ordered to grant us legal collective title, they also were mandated to demarcate and delineate our territory. And free prior inform was also one of the recommendation or that become very important, because Suriname, the government of Suriname, and understand also the government of all indigenous and tribal and local communities within the Americas, because these judgment set a legal precedent to all the government in the Americas to seek free and prior informed consent. So what this means in practically, the government need to adopt a special legislation where they have to regulate how the FPIC process need to take place. It's not just come in a community or identify 2 or 3 community members and inform them. No, they have to come prior. When the idea of one economic activities or maybe one company wants to come to your community to exploit your natural resource or everything, and it will damage you, it will have some negative impact on your life, then they have to inform you prior. You have to understand exactly what will be the benefit of the activities, but what will be also the negative impact on your society. No one has to come and rush off and hurry up you that you have to make a decision the first time they came. No, they have to give you time. It must be cultural, proper way of how we communicate within in our communities. And if you don't understand that, they have to tell you in your own language to make sure that you understand what the business is about. And then, if you as communities come together, because it is a collective, it's not an individual thing. As communities, we have to come together, we have to discuss among each other and agree on what we will decide. If we say no, then it's no. No one can force you to say yes. No police, no government, no minister, that's the decision of the community. So everyone have to respect your decision. That's what FPIC means. And that's why it's important to have legislation in place that regulate this FPIC process. So after our court ruling, we as communities, Sama communities, we work proactive. We come together, we collaborate with expert, FPIC expert to help us to wrote down FPIC procedure. How do we as community want government or companies to approach us? How do we want them to approach us when they want to enter our territory for any economic activities that will damage, that will have some negative impact in our lifestyle? So we draft FPIC protocol, and then we went to all 74 communities, because my community is about 30,000 people, spread over 74 communities. We call them villages among the river. So we are very remote, isolated. We used to be isolated, but now they built some road, open our society wide. People from outside can access our community easily right now. But still, our system is in place. And then we went to all these communities to discuss, to ask them feedback, to present the draft FPIC protocol. And then when everyone was agreed, this is the way, and that's how it used to be. That's a manner of respect, a respectful way to approach communities. So and then that's our approach. So, and then we are now in the phase of educating the government, because they need to know how we want to be approached. They cannot come and tell us how they want to inform us. No, you have to do it according to our tradition, our culture. So that's the status of the FPIC procedure within the Samaka. And the other part of FPIC has to do with benefit sharing. Because if one will come to your community, your territory, to starting a business, to exploit your natural resources, logging, mining, or any other thing, they will get some benefit. And since the negative impact will have impact on all the communities, it's fair that the benefit is also shared among communities. That means that you have to a system in place. You have to organize your community how you will deal with the benefit, who will manage the benefit, and make sure that everyone can have a fair share. So it not have to be all the time money, but it can be also community places, houses, multifunctional center where people can come together, or education system, school, healthcare, or other things. But still it needs to be coordinated, because it's not something from the traditional leaders to manage all this new thing. So that's also something we are now working and preparing, and get young people on board, young people who mostly has this Western education. They know they can deal with all this modern system, but we still work on this, because the legislation, the law that the court requires Suriname to adopt it is not adopted yet. But we believe that they don't have no way out. Once they will adopt the law, they will grant us the legal recognition of our collective title, our collective land right, but also not only the land, but also our collective governance system according our tradition and our culture. So, and that will give us also a legal personality, because as community, we didn't exist for the law. There's no law that recognize us as community, as a people, because the court, or say Samaka, is a people, not just a group in Suriname. It's a people with special rights according to the International Human Rights Standards. So that's what we are now facing, and we face a lot of opposite from the economic, private economic part, people who has interest in the forest, logging business, but also mining. They don't want to grant us this, that the politic grant us this position, the rights, but that's why we are deciding to come to fora like this, to present our case, to make you guys know that we exist as group in Suriname, that we are part in this struggle, in this fight together, so we can join each other. That's what I have to share with you. And if there's question, Adil will complement from his perspective. Then we are open for question and discussion. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My question, and really I would like to commend you for the impact that you have had in your territory, where you're more than 30,000 people, were with 74 communities, and you have managed to reach the objective. But we, in our case, as an Afro people in Colombia, in the department of Córdoba and Sucre, there are barriers to really have an impact, and it's a lack of union. That's why we are analyzing the process with Cerro Matoso, where we have so many leaders that in one way or another are against what is being done or what is being conducted. So my question is, what is the system that you have implemented to be able to organize yourselves as a community?
Okay, can I answer this question? Because I think it will make sense to respond directly. Thanks for your question, madam. I think that's one of the big challenge for communities is to keep the unity, to unite, and to get everyone on board. It's not easy if you are not the leader of the communities, because most of the time when businessmen enter your community, they just go to the leader and they try to set a deal with him. And those corrupt leaders, they don't really think about informing the communities, so then they just give consent or you can go. We could reach this success because when I was I was young, so and my grandfather used to be community leader, and my mom was also a member of the council, community council. So from that perspective, we find out and we just got their blessing to move. But it was not only our communities. We went to all other communities, and we, the affected communities, the people from the community who were affected by the Chinese companies who destroyed their farm, who pollute their water system, we got them on board. And they could share their experience in community meetings together to to open the eyes of other members. And we had a common historical event to refer to. That was the flooding of 1/3 of our territory by the Alcoa. So this transmigration community was say like what we experienced for losing all our property, our houses, our sacred places. We doesn't want to lose that anymore with a new invasion of Chinese people. Then we start first with a group of communities. From the 74, we start with 20 communities where the leaders was on board. And with those leaders, we started having meetings, informing session, and bit by bit, other communities came on board. So the challenge, as I can tell, is we have to invest time, money, and in getting at least every community member, at least a representative of them on board to start the movement. And then the majority will come later.
Compañero Hugo, muy buenas tardes.
Hugo, good afternoon.
Me gustaría saber si existen sentencias emitidas por la Corte Interamericana de Derechos Humanos.
Human Rights, Inter-American Human Rights Court, where they talk about and the decision favors consent.
Yes, let me tell you, yes, because this Saramacca judgment is called Saramacca judgment versus the state of Suriname, but this judgment set a precedent for all indigenous, tribal, local communities in the Americas. So every one of you can use this judgment, this jurisprudence as a source to claim to your rights. So, and free, prior, informed consent is one of the decision that the judge, there were 7 judges based in Costa Rica. No tsunamis was there. So these judges were based on the Inter-American Convention of Human Rights. They based their judgment based on what we present as evidence as violation. So it's important for all of us in the region that we had the court set the direction for us. Yes, as I told you from the beginning, I was one of the founder of this movement. So, but I'm not a formal traditional leader, but I'm a Saramacca leader. So I'm not a traditional leader according to our tradition. But as a leader, as engine behind this movement, I was the bridge between our community and the government and the international support team of lawyers we had. So after this landmark ruling, then the Forest People Program, there's an NGO based in UK, London. So they, what do you call that? They nominated me for the same prize your Vice President won, the Goldman Environmental Prize. So I was one of the Environmental Prize winner of 2009 for Latin America and the Caribbean.
Say, take all my microphones. Muy bien.
If we don't have any more questions, we will have rounds of questions at the end anyway. Let me emphasize something that is very important. Well, there are many important things that Hugo pointed out and emphasized, but, you know, this ruling, this judgment is of the utmost importance. And what we talked about yesterday, the pearls, how can we use this judgment? We have to say that this judgment has been adopted in different instances in the Colombian courts at a domestic level. So it's just to tell you that this is Latin American experience. Colombia is committed with the scheme of human rights in the Americas. So don't lose sight of this fact. How are the attorneys and the judges going to be conceded? Look, this is jurisprudence. We're not making it up. So regarding this, the process, the setup, my question has to do with your leadership. What led you to make this decision to lead, to be a leader, aware of all the risks that there are? Because for us as social leaders, it is very important to learn from other countries, from other leaderships that will help us strengthen our leaderships in our territories.
Okay, thank you. I think the answer is very easy. I have, by born, a spiritual connection with my territory in the forest. And although I was forced to move from my community for further education in the city, I keep missing the connection. So I have to go every time back, and I still feel this connection. So you have to believe in yourself that you are one to make a contribution to protect your people, to lead your people, because not all of us are leaders. There are born leaders and there are trained leaders. But I think the born leaders are the right leaders. And you have, if you have this spiritual connection with your territory, with your communities, then no one can stop you for leading your people to freedom. There are actually 6 tribal Maroon group in Suriname, located in 6 major rivers, because when our ancestors decided to flee away, not to stay in slavery, they just moved to the forest, and their guidance was the rivers. So they keep the river, and so we have 6 different tribes. Samaka is the largest one, but you have there what we call the Njuka of Okanisi. You have the Matawai, the Pamaka, the Aluku, and the Quintis. Those are the other tribes, and we don't have a connection among each other because Suriname is not that big as Colombia, but it's part of the Amazon. So also the colonizer didn't want us to connect with each other, so they keep divide and rule us, and they just set us against among each other. So, but we have the same structure, matrilineal structure, governance, our own traditional, that's and all. And regarding the social relationship, there was in the 80s, from 1986, there was a guerrilla movement from one of the tribal group, the Okanisi, Juka. They stand up and fight against the army because the leader was an army soldier, and there was a conflict between him and the army boss, Mr. Bouterse. And then there was like an internal war for 5-6 years. And who was the big loser? We as people from the forest, because the infrastructure was destroyed, a lot of crime against humanity, rape of a woman, and but it was our own brother who did this kind of crime. So then they managed to have a peace treaty. So now this guerrilla leader, he is now the vice president of Suriname. So thanks to his action, he became politically popular and then went to politics, and then the former president was the army leader, Mr. Bouterse. So you can see that part of this action uh, paid the way for these criminals to become political leader in Suriname. But none of them has managed to fix our rights, while they all use this, the position of tribal and injured people in Suriname as a reason to fight, to do all these war crimes. But now, we as Samaka, we are one of the peaceful tribe. May I tell you, we don't or not. But we like fighting, but not with gun. So we just want to fight with the law in our hand, try to find this way for development.
Thanks, Hugo. Ahora pasamos entonces a Adil. ¿Qué hagas tú? ¿Dónde empieza aquí?
Well, peers, good afternoon. Hugo has given us a keynote address including sociological, anthropological, ethical, cultural, political, and leadership aspects. He told us about the value of a leader, and I've been left speechless. I will incorporate what Hugo has done in a technical way, because he has really described the bulk of what I was thinking of communicating to you today. Our session here now is defined as legal and non-legal pathways to tackle the lack of free, prior, and informed consent. That's the title. To determine which are the legal and non-legal pathways that are necessary in order to establish whether a community is the subject of rights to prior consent, it is necessary to take the following into account. You have to look at which are the communities that are the subject of rights. For the case of Colombia, it's been defined that subjects of rights are the ethnic communities, and particularly the Palenqueras, African Colombian Raizales, Ron, and indigenous communities. Outside that conventional constitutional range, no other community will be entitled to having this preliminary consultation or prior consent. It is also important to define the principles guiding these prior consultation. For these consultation to be effective, the standards that guarantee the right to this consultation and the parameters that have been defined to guide the prior consultation. Prior consultation is defined as a collective fundamental right protected by norms and principles, and it manifests itself in appropriate procedures, in programs, projects, works, and activities through which the values, principles, and social practices and cultural practices are protected. Whenever a project or an activity is going to have an impact in a social, cultural, environmental, or economic way, a community, a Black community, or indigenous community, then this community would be entitled to consulta previa, or preliminary or prior consultation. Okay, next. The Constitutional Court, in its Article 7, defines the cultural rights of the indigenous peoples and of the Black communities. And under Article 330, it guarantees the right to participation, meaning that prior consultation in itself is a right that communities have to protect the ethnic and cultural diversity and also to participate in the decisions affecting them. But they have to participate in a free, autonomous, spontaneous manner without no pressures on them, or with no pressures on them. Let's move to the other one. but it has certain principles, and that would be a task to do. A principle of good faith, the principle of good faith, the principle of active and effective participation, principle of information, principle of the nature of being prior, meaning that before the company enters the territory, this prior consultation must take place. Prior to the company beginning to take actions, you have to have all the information about the project. Before the company enters your territory, you must have participated in the description or definition of the impacts that this company is going to cause. Principle of prevalence of the right to the territory and to ethnic and cultural integration. No project can affect the territory, its sustainable means of living, or its culture. Principle of flexibility. In other words, nothing can coerce you. Today, we can leave. Tomorrow, we can sit down, but it cannot be like what the company says. It starts at 8 a.m. and it's 3 a.m. and the company is already there when there's only 5 people left to take them by surprise and get things done when they're tired. Principle of consent. I think that Hugo gave us a jurisprudence approach of what corresponds to this principle. Principle of freedom. No one can be pressured or forced, or as was the case in Canal del Dique, lower your voice. You know that in this project there are powerful people. You have to be able to act freely. Principle of representativeness. If the community does not have a representative or there is a dispute around the representation, the prior consultation must be suspended until this representativeness issue is resolved. But opposite to this principle, what the Ministry of the Interior does, the Directorate or the authority on prior consultation is that they come to the community. Previously, they have met leaders of the community whom they have bribed, and they appoint a provisional board, and they violate the principle of representativeness. Principle of reparation is the principle that seeks to mitigate and compensate the impacts. And here there's a principle of publicity. The whole community must be aware of the process of prior consultation. What happens with this principle of publicity is that they meet secretly. No one finds out, and then on the next day you find out that there was a preliminary or prior consultation meeting. Principle of comprehensive participation of the state. The prior consultation is a chair that is like this. Let's describe it here. Here is the Ministry of the Interior sitting on this chair. And here is the Attorney General's office, the public ministry, the company is here, and here is the entity granting the environmental license. And in another chair, you have the lawyers. Sometimes all of those sitting there are in favor of the corporation and no one in favor of the community. When we talk about principle of comprehensive participation of the state, means that the state must be there, sitting as a guarantor in order to guarantee the right to prior consultation, but not in order to make things easier for the company through traps to go ahead and be successful in the consultation, knowing that it is violating the principles of the community. Principle of responsibility and guarantees. Principle in favor of the people. The integrity of the people must be guaranteed, and principle of ethnic and cultural integrity. You cannot change the values and principles of the community, the cultural values and principles. Well, there are some norms that guarantee the right to prior consultation. We have Articles 7, 8, 13, 40, 330, Law 70, Decrees 1076, and here we have the indigenous stipulations and Law 99 of Article 76, and there are presidential guidelines guaranteeing the right to prior consultation. Next. The Constitutional Court shows us it has set a precedent to define whether a specific community is a subject of rights to prior consultation or not. And the court says whenever the free and full enjoyment of the rights upheld by the indigenous communities, there is a right to prior consultation. Whenever an intromission into the social or cultural dynamics takes place, like you are in your river, in the countryside, in your turf, someone, stranger to your body, enters the territory, you're entitled to prior consultation. Or when the status or legal position that indigenous communities have in the national organization is changed, there is a right. And if it means violation to your environment, you do. In the case of Canal del Dique, everything that we have said in terms of the environment, because the mining projects are related with the environment, the water management projects are also related with the environment, as well as infrastructure projects. And all of them directly affect the ethnic communities as subject of constitutional right to a prior consultation. But besides the prior consultation, as we said before, this is a right exclusive of the ethnic communities. Only and exclusively applies to the ethnic communities. We have a right for all the citizens of the world, which is protected under the Declaration of Rio de Janeiro, the right to participation in the environment. This right is the right that every citizen has to participate and intervene in the decisions adopted by public and private institutions regarding decisions, programs, and projects in relation to the environment or affecting the environment and human health. Meaning that if in your community, farmers, peasants community, or if in a city a project is being developed or some activity is being developed that affects the environment and consequently human health, you're entitled to intervene there for the corresponding adjustments and measures to be adopted so that this impact will be improved or mitigated. And the Constitution says that everyone is entitled to enjoying a healthy environment. The law guarantees the participation of the community in the decisions that may affect them. So it is the state's duty to protect the diversity and integrity of the environment, to preserve the areas of special ecological importance, and to promote education in order to achieve these goals. This is under the Declaration of Rio, but the Constitution ratifies it. And Principle 10 of this declaration, so that we don't forget. Because usually in our practice, what the company says, we cannot consult them, but the community is entitled to intervening in the environmental management plan and to see what are the tasks that were left from this plan and to check the environmental license. But since this is an advantage for the companies, the fact that the community is not knowledgeable of their human rights with respect to the environment is very important for you to be acquainted with this principle under the Rio Declaration. The best way to go in environmental issues is with the participation of everyone, the interested parties, at the level that it may correspond. Domestically, every individual should have appropriate access to information. This principle goes in accordance with the principle under prior consultation, which is right to information. If you tell the company, give me a copy of the project, and they don't give it to you, and when the company denies this information from the project that is going to be carried out in your community, be it Black, Palenquera, Raizal, or African descendant, or indigenous community, or a peasant community, when they do so, they're violating this principle 10 of the Rio Declaration, as well as the principle of good faith in the prior consultation process, because they're hiding that information from you, which was what happened to us with Hokol. It took them 6 months to give us the information on the project. I'm not going to be reading this because this is way too long. No, I won't be reading this. This is the development of the right to environmental participation. This is a decision from the Pasto Court. It's a very important sentence or rulings that shows us that every citizen is entitled to participate in environmental decisions, and that participating in these decisions is not limited only, as is the case in our communities, to being summoned to a meeting in which they're going to be given information about the project. No. Environmental participation shows us here that you must have all the information regarding the project, and you must receive it in a proper way. But your opinions, your recommendations, your suggestions must be taken into account according to the Constitutional Court. Now, opposite to this, when we were discussing all these things with the company was convened to socialize the project or to informed, but their opinions were not taken into account. So it's important for you to realize that these decision, this ruling T361 of 2017, and another one that is quoted here from 2021, according to which the Constitutional Court instructed the suspension of air spraying with glyphosate. In other words, the PACI program to be suspended because the prior consultation with the Black communities had not taken place, communities that would be impacted, and their intent was to do it online. So simply because they had not complied with this obligation on prior consultation and environmental participation. Well, the session has to do with legal and non-legal actions. We already referred to some extent to the prior consultation or consent, but here we also have some non-legal actions. Hugo taught us that they reached out to all these communities that have 30,000 people, and they informed them of the need to be together. They raised awareness in the community, and this is called empowerment and articulation. But Hugo told us that they went beyond this point. And in order to get empowerment, I imagine that they also established a communications plan, because the conquerors divided them, so they didn't have communication among them. However, they coordinated themselves, they mobilized themselves, and they must have had their own communications plan. But Hugo also referred to political advocacy, right? And here we have petitions and complaints and claims. So this means that in the non-legal actions, when we are not going to file any lawsuit, we have to empower the communities. We have to look for a point of convergence, and that convergence point is our culture. What unites us? All of us in Canal del Dique, we're united by the river, by the water, by the sustainable means of life. In the case of Hugo, they were united by all the natural resources that were being degraded. Why is it necessary, this mobilization, to send the country a message of the impacts caused by the project, to give them visibility? We did this as an experience in Canal del Dique, and I just saw this piece of news that was sent to me saying that a worker attacked an operator from the company, but the city does not know that the company destroyed their sustainable survival means. But it is not clear that this damage caused by the company has to be made visible, and for that you need to have a communication plan, the written press, the media. We had like 3,300 meetings, and we told the country that the Canal del Dique project was corrupt, was harmful, was a privatization of the river, and we did the government the favor of bringing out this project that they were hiding and put it before the country. Today, this is a project that is well known thanks to the community's work. But talking about political advocacy, we met with senators and we worked on a project for political control that was never quoted. We met with the United Nations and we traveled together with the United Nations, all of the Canal del Dique, with the parliament members, and we presented complaints and claims, and if we looked at them, they could disable like a dozen officials because they all were involved in embezzlement. So this is what we submitted. Now, talking about Hugo, they resorted as a legal action to the Inter-American system, and they filed a complaint, a petition before the Inter-American system. If there's a violation of our rights to a healthy environment and to environmental participation or to prior consultation, if that violation happens, we can use this class action as a transition mechanism. But if in the framework of a process of environmental licensing that we were convened about or that we were involved in or not, if the programs, tasks, or projects that were enshrined in the license or in the management plan, you can file a performance action petition and saying you have to comply with this administrative act. But if there's an environmental license that was not known or made known to the community, or if by having been made known to the community was not shared with the community, or if the programs or projects according to the environmental license are not being developed, or if it is affecting the environment or human health, and if the project is not adopting any measures for mitigation thereof, you can file an action of nullity before the Administrative Contentious Court. Well, there are only a few cases where the project actually comes to an end, and we are always left with this class action promoting the action, but we do not sue the license or the mining title, which is going to harm the river and which is privatizing the territory. We don't go against the environmental license for the operation of the mining title. We just keep the class action or group action for the, or in terms of the prior consultation. That's a big mistake. But we can ask for the reestablishment of our rights, and if the mining title, if with the environmental license and the operation of the project or any of its activities you damage the environment or human health, a contingent damage, then if that happens, we can file a people's action requesting the suspension or the non-execution of the project. So very quickly, I can see three actions in the national jurisdiction. But also, if we want to go beyond this point, we could tell the Inter-American Commission that in Colombia there are no guarantees because the justice is excessively corrupt.
And we go to the Inter-American system without exhausting the other systems, and we can submit a petition like what Hugo did in his case. Before that, before reaching or before going into those judicial actions, we have administrative actions. For example, companies don't like to give information on the projects, Article 23 of the Constitution, to have information on the project. Law 99 and Article 74 states that you can submit information petitions or requests on projects that have to do with environmental impact. Or Article 62 of that same law states that we can request, we can revoke, request a revoke if in San Jose de Oro there's a project that has serious social, cultural, environmental impacts that today has a licensing, it's underway a licensing process in Planeta Rica. That's where they're gathering their nickel or iron ore to take it 120 km. But the environmental license is only where they capture the resources, but not on the processing area. So here we can revoke and suspend and ask for the suspension of the process because communities there were not taken into consideration in that process. But today we're having a consultation without resolution of the Ministry of Interior. It's an agreement between the community and the company, and that's inefficient. That's not a decision, a legal decision. Article 69 gives citizens the possibility of participating in environmental procedures, which means when we talk about environmental participation, so in a licensing process, the citizens can become part of the project. They can sue the decisions. They can. See, because our friend Jorge, through his organization, they're participating in the licensing process of a Canal del Dique. And there's another procedure that we don't know about, which is environmental hearings. 100 signatures of the community and 3 organizations can go to the environmental corporation or the national and request an environmental hearing on a project or activity that is generating serious impact. Jorge has experience, but because it's not done under public hearing, because it's the company that should pay all the costs, and if the company pays all the costs, they lend the microphone to the citizen. But if you tell them that this hearing that is being summoned, it's public and popular. This is an environmental, popular, and public. So you lend the microphone to the government and to the company, and they can co-opt you. So that's another mechanism of environmental participation. And here we have the compliance action. Yes? So having said this, we do not exhaust. Well, in the people's action or class action, we don't really exhaust all the rights that the community have to participate within the environmental decisions that affect them. There are other avenues to resort to the national entities to claim those rights. What we've seen is that due to the absence of lawyers and that difficulties that communities and the lack of knowledge, today we are falling short and we are only doing people's action. But you can exhaust the other judicial actions, and we invite you to find a point of encounter, what is affecting us in our territory. Find common ground so you can start there. And that would enable us to make progress. We in the Canal El Digo, we had 300 meetings. We submitted precautionary measures, and today we have it reserved as the petition between the Inter-American system. Today we have it reserved the people's action or the class action, and we know where we can really suspend or knock down the project. But the project attacked us. What when they use one the towards bribe, they co-opted some and they began the disaccreditation campaign. They linked the project to organized crime. So we had to draw back a little bit and push back. But in despite of all our recommendations, written recommendations, we don't have the will to file an annulment action with respect to the concession contract, but also nullity actions to a project that has no environmental licensing, and through irregularities, it's a project that is an economic project. But leaders were not able to respond to the qualities that Hugo, my grandfather, taught me. My mother was a leader, and the threat on the sustainable means of life were. But today in Cartagena, we have the clan. One advisor community. We moved away from them. They've all bought. The next day that they signed a contract with a community to develop a project, they get a new car. This is the worst thing that has ever come to the Caribbean. They corrupted, divided the communities. His own brothers, Yurley, threw him to the Clan El Golfo. That's the reality that we have. But I would like to conclude by saying that we need to move forward with the recommendations made by our brother Hugo, and we need to continue defending our territory with ethics and commitment. Thank you very much. Thank you, Adil. So for you to know, we have another winner of the award. Adil was awarded the Hemingbrooke Award. This is an award granted to activists, defenders, and so Adil won that prize due to his work. And they gave it to him 2 or 3 months ago in London, so that you know. We have like half an hour. Let us ask 2 specific questions to Adil, and we will have that half an hour for a discussion, to have a general discussion of having a prior consultation, prior free and consent. There's a specific question asked, where's Hugo? Okay. About what advice would you give to Adil? So Hugo, how can you have respect prior consent if you have some specific consent? And we could ask the question to Hugo as well. Since from your experiences, what have you done that Hugo hasn't done, and what has done Hugo that you haven't done that could be useful? So I led you to answer the question.
Okay. Adil, thanks for your technical presentation. This is a legal clinic, actually. All the tools we have as community, as lawyers, to support our communities. And let me say this. Government companies, they don't like FPIC because they think they have money, they are powerful, so they can just come and walk over and make decision for you. So you as community need to know your rights. You have to know your quality. So you have to educate them when they come to you that you are the owner, you have the resources, and you need me. I don't need you. Because we as community, we don't approach companies, right? They come to us, and they want us to respect them. In contrary, they have to respect us. So I think there's a important thing for us to be aware of our position or our right. It's about equality. You have money, I have resources. You need my resources to make more money, so you have to respect me and listen to me so that we can sit on table, a round table, not a square, a round, and then, because then we are equal to discuss. So you make an offer, and I make another offer, and then we start negotiation. And we as community need to know that position. We need to know our position, that we are not weak, we are strong. But we have to have faith, we have to confidence among ourselves, and then together we can win. So that's what I just want to say in general. But actually I don't have anything to comment on Adil, sir, because when you base your case on the law, on all the procedure, then you have all these steps to take, and you have, of course, the legal action, information sharing, petition, communication, and we have communication awareness is an ongoing process. It's not something that stop, because our community, you can go have a community meeting, and the next day you left. Other committee members who are not there came with other information, and you have to come again and start again. So this is an ongoing process. And thank God, nowadays we have all these social media platform. We can exchange information, we can send by WhatsApp. When I start in 1996, there was no internet access in my communities. We don't even have phone contact. So we use this two-way radio, and that was maybe the polyclinic, some community has some healthcare center where you had this two-way radio, and then we have to go to the center in the city and then send in a certain time, in the morning and the afternoon, one message, and then they collect it and then bring it to the community. So it was like, but now with one just message, you can send it to 1,000 million of people. So but we have to make sure that we make good use of all these tools we have nowadays. But also, these tools, they can use also to spread misinformation, to spread fake news. And that is also something we need to be aware of. And good leadership, good guidance is very important to help our community on the right track. Adel, congratulations with your presentation.
But here, the axis of consent doesn't revolve around the rights of people, the rights of nature. It revolves around the interest of the project. If it revolved around the rights of people and we would have that respect, we would be talking about consent. People can say, I object that process and I will not develop that project. But in a country where you have not freedom to decide, where you are told that the project goes, it doesn't, irrespective of that the project is part of the economic lines that the state promotes and that it should be developed, but also that there is emphasis on the ethical of leadership, which is also a threat. The ethics of leadership that Hugo has talked about, which has been, and it's not seen by the company, but it's also seen by the community. It's been that nature is a business. It's part of a business. For some community leaders, nature is a business. So consent would not be an opportunity because leaders of the community have understood also that today it is an opportunity for them to be able to earn some profits. And our friend of Cañara Verales would say, which is what they would do meetings with the advisors, and they define and decide on the community in a private meeting where the methodological or the cost of advisors, they decide if the central axis would be the respect for nature, the respect of the table and the community, and that round table should not be in favor only of the company, but of the rights of community. We would talk about consent, but in Colombia it's not possible to talk about consent within the context with violence and institutional weaknesses. And I value today. I feel proud that Hugo has come here because it's what you can teach us when we decide to face the Canal de Dique project. I'm the region from the region. I'm from the region that is going to be expected. I have a social and cultural that my dead people and my family are there. It's not something that I invented. It's not even the fees that I could earn. And when we've gone to Camacol to face the company, and now we go to BHP Billiton because we have a commitment with nature, but the conditions are not there, because there are endogenous and exogenous factors that hinder us from being there. Because there would be no freedom for us to exercise our rights. Thank you very much. Thank you, Adil. To talk about, I think, pinpoint, how can we talk about to consult or consent in this context of violence, impunity, where they destroyed the ways of life, where we have poverty. The state has played a role that favor making the community poorer, so they have no options. And so under those conditions, are we talking about consultation? Are we talking about consent? Or we're playing a really dirty game? I have a comment from Francisco, and then we'll go if you have any questions to Adila and Hugo. I will take 3 questions, and then I'll have these 4 questions. I'll move to the next round of questions. Francisco first, who will talk to us. Just all the rulings of the Constitutional Court on prior consultation, they have a little paragraph that people do not read it. The rulings of the Constitutional Court, they say that prior consultations, and they say marvelous things, that when it's being planned, etc., etc. But in the final paragraphs, it states that if the community and the government do not reach an agreement on prior consultation, what stands out is what the government says. So that begs the question, why do you do prior consultation if you're not going to do what the community wants? So in an experience where I participated in the Cerro Cara de Perro, prior consultation was repeated, and 100% of the indigenous rejected the mining company. But today, the mining company is still there. They bomb the communities and they want to expel them. This is just so we can have this. Because when they changed the Article 332 of the Constitutional Court they have a change of words. Before the Constitution of 1991, the law and they said that the property of the subsoil was of the state, but we are all the state. We are all the state. The Constitution of 1991 says that the ownership of the subsoil is the state. And who's the state? The one that manages the state. And so the government decides. Really, like the pun that has happened to Hugo, because there's a Dutch power that imposes on, because imperialist countries, they make the law. This is a calling. When you do this type of things, the fight has to be diversified. Not only it's a legal battle because organized crime makes the laws in Colombia. So from the onset, you are winning. So we have to do the investment, international claim. We need to file lawsuits internationally, etc., etc. Thank you, Francisco. Good afternoon. My name is Andres Achito, and I'm part of a collective, Lawyers Cuabauda, and we are from our organization. We have a concern vis-à-vis this principle that said ADIL, which is the principle to access information. In our case, for example, we are developing an observatory for prior consultation. It's like a tool that we thought that allows us to access in real time to information on the projects, works, or activities, or draft bills or fundamental rights. And we have found a barrier, which is institutions that should provide the information. In a way, they do not provide the information that they should, or it's not really understandable, especially for communities where the information should be absolutely clear, that they don't have that technical language. So in that regard, the question is, what mechanisms besides those mechanisms that the right to petition and things like that, or what other actions can we implement so that the Ministry of the Interior, they could provide that information, that it's easy to access, and for the communities or the general public at large. No oigo, por favor, el micrófono. El micrófono. We have to go. I'm sorry, we have to go, so we have to say goodbye to you. Thank you for... Okay, let us introduce our peers. Something that Adil has taught me something. A brief introduction so Hugo knows the people who are leaving. We, without a car, we walk. We move. Because prior consultation, if it had if it weren't for Adil, prior consultation would not exist. Because this is a mechanism that the state has sought to make communities fight. we communities, we haven't been able to manage the tools, and we began to fight among each other. And the Colombian state moves forward, the companies move forward, and we, without car, we move. Without money, we eat. And the problem is we all want to be leaders, to have money and luxury. When we are leaders, we are responsible for our territory. So today, before I leave, the person who is deemed to be leader is not for personal benefits, but communitary, collective benefits, because we have become a time bomb where communities have become divided into groups, and one, brings the guerrilla to one, and then the paramilitaries to the other. I understand that here they're young people, but they're older people. Let us not begin this is a game. This is a game imposed by the state, and these people that have come from outside, they have taught us the game we're in. So as of now, we have that responsibility to do what's right.
So, thank you. This question is related to some points that we have at the Observatory of Cubadaura. The second question is, how can we integrate all these principles into some new businesses that have to do with mining, but it's not really mining from mines, extraction. We're referring to the sale of carbon bonds because since we are in a meeting talking about corporate responsibility, many of the companies that perform these actions, especially the oil companies, they do this purchase and sale of carbon bonds, and in that way, they're supposed to be redressing the damage that they generate. But what is going on today is that this has led to conflicts in the communities, especially indigenous communities, like the Piraparaná case, where there was very serious break of the relationships in between the communities. So when we're talking about an action that does not necessarily go against the environment, but goes against the social organizations and also breaks the cultural system of the Chagra and the uses given to the territory, how is it that this sale and purchase of carbon bonds can be, we're missing a regulatory framework, a more specific one, as to how to analyze these new problems that are emerging and how to relate that to that capital, because the contaminating companies pay, but those that resell the carbon bonds are also getting a profit from the sale of those bonds. So the capital will never lose. There will be a way to generate resources through exploitation or through conservation. So I want to call your attention upon this and for this to be seen in our debates. Good afternoon. My name is Carolina Fuertes, and I come from Mocoa, Putumayo. I want to congratulate Hugo and Il for being these big leaders. How many times in these spaces, it's been the case for many of us that we just want to give up. We feel like we cannot go on anymore because besides putting your life at stake, you're jeopardizing the life of your families. So hearing them makes us strong, gives us this strength and this willingness to continue on this hard pathway to protect the Pachamama, as the indigenous peoples call it. And I belong to that indigenous people. And I've also been involved in the community boards to defend the territory. So my question for Dil, how can we face the media that are always applauding these multinationals? In the municipality of Mocoa, more specifically yesterday, it was announced that Libero Copper is extending a labor convening, asking for the resumes of the citizens of Mocoa. So imagine this problem We are suffering in all the departments of the of lack of jobs. That's a problem that we have. And then you come then these multinationals come and they promise heaven and earth. And then besides that, they partner up with educational institutions. In our case, ITP, the Putumayo Technological Institute, to sit in these spaces and start asking for resumes from the citizens. We, as community boards, are the liars of the moment because agreement number 020 is not being respected because everything that we have fought for and all the groups, the environmentalists that are here defending our territory are worth nothing. So please, Adil, help us. Give us that tip as to what we can do in order to face the media. We know that we have tried to resort to the different media and outlets, but with the government institutions and educational institutions, just imagine they should be on the side of the defense of the environment, and it's now a little difficult. Even with Corpo Amazonia, a territorial entity that oversees the protection of the environment. Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. I work with De Justicia, Sergio Pulido. And I want to adhere to the congratulation words for Hugo and Emil. My first question is, what do you think about the instrumentalization of certain political sectors in the discourse of prior consultation? And I'm thinking of this specific case. Recently, the hearing that was held in the Constitutional Court for a decision about the constitutionality of the Escazú agreement. It was the right wing, Paloma Valencia, and the political science from Chavarria Lazoga, defending that the agreement of Escazú should be declared inconstitutional because it needed a prior consultation. So that's my first question. And the second question is, I'm very interested in this idea that there may be other tools besides tutelas or injunctions or people's actions that may be useful in the prior consultation. I would like to know whether a deal has of any cases that they have accompanied and which are the main pros and cons that you see in the other tools besides the people's action. And for Hugo, my first question is, I understand that the Inter-American Court ruling is from 2007. I would like to go deeper in it. What progress has been obtained or setbacks after the issuance of this ruling by the Inter-American Court? And the second one is based on Adil's presentation. Here in Colombia, we've become accustomed to seeing a difference between right to participate, right to be consulted, and the right to a prior free and informed consent. I would like to know whether in Suriname you make these differentiations or if anything is included in the same framework of prior consent. Okay, let's begin with this last question. We have found the political sectors right, but it doesn't mean, as collective subject of rights, we're still in the era of, we're beyond our youth because we go back 30 years. How many years? How old is law 30? 30 years. In 30 years, a person is just shaping up. It's acquiring the experience and the responsibilities. At 30, that's our age as subjects, collective subjects of rights. But if we ask, which have been the public policies to consolidate those rights, we don't find them. We find spaces, national spaces for prior consultations that don't have the right approach, don't have the right design, where African descendants decided by majority that they would vote according to the number of hectares. That's how participation works in this country. Since the Pacific coast and Togo have about 6 million hectares, we have 90% of the people that decide. So the life of the African descendants is there not because of the number of inhabitants, but because of the number of hectares. That's how it works. But there's another weakness, and I'm not going to talk about corruption. I'm going to talk about undue practices. And we've been considered as an obstacle to development or as people that bribe companies. And this is the discourse that has taken roots and that is being positioned to delegitimize the right to prior consultation. Because today, when a company is going to develop a project, it'll say, we don't bribe, we won't bribe UGA, we won't bribe Sol, we won't bribe this or that. We will displace them because they're an obstacle, the ones that cannot be bribed. So, because this is part of the collective imagination that these are communities historically abandoned, they have found in the prior consultation an opportunity to move their projects and programs forward, which have nothing to do with the compensation measures, which is what the company sees as the solution to all the problems. But there's also leaders that take advantage of this to become rich. So this legitimizes, to some extent, those positions against the rights that we hear from Mrs. Cabal and in the past from Vargas Lleras. So I can state this. And the other topic that you were referring to was, remind me? Oh, which other actions? Okay. So we're talking about fragility in the community institution. A community institution that has been the subject of all the historic violence, especially institutional abandonment. And I'm going to say this because I have been studying this for 20 years. An action of nullity and establishment of simple nullity against the act of environmental licensing. Block B, bin 5 of Canacol. We filed the action, and in 15 days, because I did not give in to a bribe with some information that came, the community withdrew the action. And I understand that they were bribed. 3 lawsuits I signed, 2 were withdrawn because a governor had an agreement with the Canacol multinational, and he told the state council that they had differences with me. Then I found out that that agreement existed. So how can you move ahead? The institution, the community institution, has a weakness, and we have prepared these lawsuits for the Canadian case, but given the threats that have come about, we haven't proceeded with them. But today, well, there's also another lawsuit, and I can talk about this. There was an agreement also in this gas project from Canacol, and an agreement was reached before the state council decided between the community and Canacol. An economic agreement was reached not on the social and economic and environmental rights. So what our colleague says here, well, in our presentation we said that we needed to coordinate the means of defense. We have some people with whom we have worked in the last 20 years and a member of the victims movement. And usually, since information is denied to us, what we do is that we put together a right of petition, we send it to a senator of the republic, and it is through the membership of the senator that answers come, and they have 5 days for the answers. This is a way to get information, but it could also be obtained through the Ombudsman's office that has a person responsible for collective and constitutional rights in Bogota, or through the Attorney General's office, because we know that the environmental Attorney General offices are co-opted. In Cartagena, we have had problems with the public authorities. That would be a way to get information, even though when the company is reluctant to give it to us through a senator, a representative, or directly through the public ministry in Bogota. Now, regarding the question made by the peer here, what can we do? I said it yesterday, I won't repeat it today. The multinational has enough resources to hire a team of lawyers and defend itself from the state and from the community. But it has enough resources, especially the Spanish ones, to generate in people's imagination in general that Hugo, Adil, and all of us here are enemies of development and progress, because a project that is going to come into an abandoned region is going to resolve all the problems in the region. And it turns out that the community was happy before the project came. As I said in London, when the project comes, the guerrilla comes, the paramilitaries come, water disappears. So we have to implement communication strategies in order to counteract the communication actions of the company that sees you as the enemy. This involves the media, alternative press, the national press, and get recognized leaders to write articles on the Canal del Dique. We issued a documentary with very strong words. 3 days afterwards, I had 50,000 views, but 24 hours later, I was talking to a vice minister. We had 2 Informes Coronel. This is a radio program. In Facebook, I had like 3,000 followers. Today, it's like 15,000, but I haven't checked. So 1 year, we had 15,000 people following us, and we were able to show that we were right. Today, nothing is being done in Canal del Dique that has not been our recommendation, our demands. But the project speaks to all the corrupt people except with us. But what they're implementing are our recommendations. So we have to implement a media communication plan that will keep the community informed about the risks and the threats and the bribes being offered by the project in order to divide the community with members of the local community and also with national experts. For instance, injunction that we filed out of the 18 that we submitted for the Canal del Dique. In the last tutela or injunction, we convened De Justicia, Alican, and some institutions as third parties, as stakeholders in the project. Of course, they did not become a party. I don't know what happened there, but the idea was to bring this to a national level. So, a communication plan. Now, regarding the carbon bonds, I think that in this morning we heard that we have to take this out of the national context and bring it to the international context. In our case, we work on the basis of context. When we go to a community, we make this timeline that allows us to identify the problem, its actors, risks, threats, social, cultural consequences, and we try to create a landscape. And together with Milena, we will be visiting other communities this week. So we have to report the situations before the state entities, which are the ones that are propitiating this, and we have to denounce this before the media. But since this morning we said that we had these international agencies, well, we have to decide who were there before the company came. Was the company there, or were we there? Who should be recognized with those benefits coming from the sale of CO2? But you have to put it in the national and in the international context with patience. The idea is not come out of here to face multinationals that, and I'm almost finished, that have the FARC groups, the dissidents, Second Marquetalia, ELN. Well, he's naming all these illegal groups. He has a colonel of the police, of the army, and the Navy. They have the ministers. In the ministries, they have William Camargo, and I speak for my case. They have the ombudsman's office and the attorney generals, even the church. So because they have everything in their favor, You have to have your community or the majority of your community on your favor. If you don't succeed at that, you will have to rethink how to do it.
Let me see how to respond to this question about the progress that has made since the judgment. And we are not there yet, but we are setting some baby steps. And I can tell you that one of the achievements is that we managed to put land rights, collective land rights of tribal and indigenous people on the national agenda. Since the judgment, every political party has this as one of the propaganda item on their party program. But when they come in office, they came with all argument for not implementing, and it's like complicated, all these issues are coming up. But at least it's on the agenda. We as Maka people are now feasible, because before we were unknown. No one knew about us, but now we are feasible, international and national also. The government, they comply with some part of the judgment, like the financial compensation, they pay that. They make money available for our draft map. We have draft our territory already. They just have to adapt it. There is couple of commission who has prepared, do some preparation work, and there's now a draft framework law in the parliament on the debate. That will be the frame how to regulate land rights, collective land rights, but also the right to participation and all these things, because Suriname, we have a very ineffective legal system. According to our legal system, international law is higher than national law. So the agreement, the convention, the Inter-American Convention that Suriname has ratified in 1987 is higher, is from a higher range than our domestic law. So one of the requirements is that Suriname has to align the national law with international standard. And that will guarantee also the right to participation, all these other things. So that process is now ongoing. And so we are not there yet, and that's why we think we have to put more pressure. We have to raise our voices more to get also international support to pressure our government, because when these guys go to the international forum, they have nice talk about how things is going there, but in the country, there's a lack of respect for human rights. So we are collaborating with friends, with organizations, NGOs. Rules to Justice, one of our partner, but also Global Justice Association, RRI, WRI. So we have a couple of organizations, but also Allied is a international human rights defenders and environmental defenders organization who supported and who help us to amplify our voice and to make sure that we can increase the pressure to the government. And we are also explore the possibilities to look how we can block financial support from this big financial institution like World Bank, IMF, and also the money the one who borrow money to companies to come to our territory for violation of our rights. So, and of course the awareness, people became more aware of their rights, our own people, and that's for us very important because you can stand up as leader, you can come and speak on behalf of community, but we have to make sure that the community members also become aware. And we have now also young leadership, young champions. We have now women champions on board who are standing up and make sure that our fight will continue after I get retired and all other leaders get retired. So that's also our approach now to get more young people on board because it's an ongoing fight. It's not stop with adaptation of a law, because then you have to implement. How will you implement everything? How will you manage your territory in a sustainable way? Dealing now with Western legislation, because then you have to comply with the law that the politician will make for you. So there's a lot of things to do still, but we are in that process. I think that was all about the question. Have I missed something?